Hey, my name's Josh, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of living on Gabriola Island. So, let's jump right in. The first pro that we'll talk about is the location of Gabriola Island, its fantastic beaches, and its sunsets that can be enjoyed. There are, of course, more beaches on larger Vancouver Island, but the beaches on Gabriola Island are quite special. For example, take a peek at Twin Beaches on the island. There are two beaches facing each side. The south side facing beach, you walk across a large grassy field area, and then there's this white, sandy, protected cove that's super warm in the summer, very popular spot. It really is a favorite spot for many families. Now, the next pro that we'll talk about is the friendly community vibe feeling that is enjoyed on the island. There's a small town community feel. There's less hustle and bustle comparatively to across the water in a larger town like Nanaimo, or certainly compared to larger cities in the area. But we still have accessibility to large town amenities. For example, you can get on the ferry and within a few minutes be at Superstore or Costco. But on the island, there's more of a rural feeling. It's a little more laid back, crime is typically lower, and it is really a great spot to be. There's also tons of walking trails around the island. That the network of walking trails is really extensive. And I'll be covering that in another video, but look forward to that content coming out. There's actually a printed map by Galt, G-A-L-T-T, that shows this network of trails and just how many there are on the island. Now, another pro of living on Gabriola Island are all of the community events. Take a peek at the website down below. This outlines upcoming community events. There are open mic nights at the golf course, there are Sunday markets at Pages Inn and Silva Bay, and many more. Gabriola Island is actually known as the Isle of the Arts. So there are 3 large events throughout the year that are run by the Gabriola Art Council. So in the early spring, there is the Isle of the Arts event, and it's 11 days of create-it-yourself workshops, performances, events, classes, talks, interactive art and family days, professional development for artists, and more. And then midsummer, there's the Cultivate Festival. It's a multi-day music, theater, and arts festival on the island. And then in the fall, this might be the most popular, arguably, is the Art Studio Tour. It's pretty amazing. This will be the 27th annual Thanksgiving tour. It traditionally brings about 1,500 visitors directly to the island. It runs for 3 days. There's a studio tour brochure that's printed up that shows all the locations over the island of the different tours that you can visit and what they'll be showcasing. So what type of art? There'll be painters, there'll be potters, there'll be jewelry makers. There's so much to see and explore, it's pretty cool. Now let's talk about some of the cons of living on Gabriola Island, or really just the factors, the things you need to be aware of. What's different about life on Gabriola Island? So the first thing, of course, is it is an island. So to get there, it's not like many other communities where you can simply get in your car and drive. There is the ferry service that provides access to and from the island. Now there's also accessibility by means of seaplane, or if you had your own boat as well, but the vast majority of access is gained by the ferry. Now in the summer, the island is a tourist destination. A lot of people come to visit, especially in the summer months when the young ones are out of school. So July and August, we do see an influx of more activity on the island. So this means that in the summer months, lineups to get on or off the island are extended. So while typically you might be able to get into the lineup and get across, in the summer months you might need to do a little bit more planning. There might be a sailing wait, or maybe even sometimes more than one sailing wait. But I will say that the accessibility to and from the island has dramatically improved now that there are 2 ferries doing the sailing crossing. So picture 1 boat in Nanaimo, 1 on Gabriola, and then both leaving at the same time, and then crossing in the middle and delivering passengers. So now there's twice as much ferry service going to and going from the island. So things really have improved in that regard. Now, the next con or thing to be aware of living on the island are groceries. We have essentially one grocery store on the island at Nestor's. And at the grocery store, you will find that most things really are to be found there. But some produce may tend to be a little bit more expensive than in town. So some families choose to do maybe their incidental shopping at the local grocery, and then for maybe a large monthly shopping trip, heading over to Nanaimo and perhaps going to Superstore or Costco. But everything again is on the island. It's just some things at the grocery store will likely cost a little bit more. Another option too is, even if you didn't have a vehicle, you could walk onto the ferry, leaving Gabriola, and right across the road at the ferry terminal in Nanaimo is Port Place Mall. And there's a Thrifty's grocery store, there's a BC liquor store, and there's lots of fast food there too. So it doesn't have to involve your vehicle or a large trip up to North Nanaimo. You could simply just walk across and be at another option as well. And with all that I've said, of course, the island really does benefit by having Nestor's the grocery store presence. The staff has always been excellent, and if you requested something that wasn't present, they've always been really good to work with you in that way as well, in my experience. Now, the next thing that we'll talk about, and I don't want to label this as a con, but just a thing to be aware of, is the school system. So the school system on Gabriola Island actually has a really good reputation. Many families love the school and the teachers and what's being done there. The thing to be aware of is that it goes to grade 7, so kindergarten to grade 7. So young ones that are over that level, their day will be extended a little bit by means of a bus that'll pick them up on Gabriola Island, take them to the ferry. The ferry will take them across to Nanaimo, and there will be another bus waiting that'll take them to Nanaimo District Secondary School. So it does add a little bit more commute time. There is a solution, but it's a factor to be aware of if you have older children that are going in grades 8 through 12. Now, another factor to be aware of is in the winter, we still get storms. So our climate is very mild, of course, for Canada standards on Gabriola Island, and that may be a large decision-making factor for you wanting to come this way. I know it was for me. I really was over the really cold winters, and so this was something that I was excited for. However, this is still Canada. We still do get winter, we still do get storms. So average precipitation, if you go to the website weatherandclimate.com, we see that the average annual precipitation on Gabriola Island is 939 millimeters for the year. Now, if you look at the average precipitation for the city of Vancouver, it's actually 1,200 millimeters per year. So where we actually are in a bit of this weather shadow of Vancouver Island, kind of directing some of the rain around us. So we do get less rain than Vancouver. But in the winter, when there is a storm, it does affect things. Driving around Gabriola, you can't help but notice that there are a lot of trees. And this really helps with the feeling of the rural feeling, and with the feeling of privacy on properties, having trees around your property so you're not always staring at your neighbors like we do in the cities. But because there are so many trees, in the winter with a windstorm, trees come down and they hit power lines. It happens. It happens maybe 1, 2, 3 times in a winter, just on average. So when this happens, the power goes out, and BC Hydro has to come over and resolve the issue. There have been times in massive winter storms where the power's been out even for longer than a day. So there was one storm a few years back where the power was out in some areas 3, 4, 5 days, some areas even a little bit longer. Now this didn't just affect Gabriola Island, this was also on the larger island. There were areas on the large island, main Vancouver Island, where the power was also out for 3, 4, 5 days. So it's just a factor to be aware of, and to be able to prepare for this, many people do have portable generators. Perhaps not powering their whole home, which would of course be ideal, but maybe just where you can plug in a couple extension cords to be able to get through the period where the power goes out. And it really depends when the power goes out too, right? If the power goes out early in the morning, the odds of BC Hydro being able to make it over and resolve the issue are greater. But if it's 9 or 10 p.m. and a storm comes through and the power goes out, you know that it's not going to be looked at until the next day. So I'm Josh Wood, and I hope you enjoyed some of the pros and cons of living on the island. I'm a realtor that works here on the island. I know the island quite well. I'm familiar with it. If you're coming this way for a visit or you're coming this way to move, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to chat.